society we live in. You can't incite violence against other people. You can't say that it's legitimate for someone to assassinate the Prime Minister of Australia because they're pro-Israel in their attitude. You'll get into trouble if you say that. So it's not without restriction. You have freedom of speech, but not without restriction. You can't incite violence. You can't incite hatred against any other religion or any other ethnic group. You're not permitted to do that. You can criticise them, but you're not permitted to incite hatred. I'm a strident critic of the State of Israel. I criticise them because of their policies of occupation and repression. I'm critical of the United States for what they've allowed Israel to get away with. But that's not an offence. There's no offence there. I think that the Israeli government should be brought to account, and I think they should be dealt with as war criminals. But that's not an offence. That's an opinion, a legitimate political opinion that I can express. So you can do that. So I'm just going to talk about some of these other questions in some more specific detail. Well, there's a question about the fact that the United States seems to get away with everything in terms of its attack on all minorities, whether it be in Syria or Hezbollah in Lebanon or other organisations. Well, it's true, America's the most powerful country in the world, and we can be critical of them, but they are the ruling country, and we need to be cautious about what we say about the United States. Now, Philip Ruddock, there's a question about Philip Ruddock passing so-called sedition laws, and can they be challenged through the United Nations? Well, Australia is a subscriber. We're a signatory to the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So we have freedom of assembly, we have freedom of movement, we have freedom of religion, and these are all principles that we support. And so in the Nasser Ben-Briki case, for instance, we challenged the conditions in which they were detained. We made a complaint to the United Nations. We said Australia was not upholding its obligations in the treatment of unconvicted remand prisoners. And part of that campaign that we took to get them moved from Geelong in the Barwon prison to Melbourne, we utilised the United Nations for that purpose. But it can only really be effective if you've got a federal government who has enough fortitude and willingness to make the complaint, because it normally has to come from the federal government. One of the reasons why I took the opportunity when Baha asked me to speak tonight is that knowledge and information is the most powerful tool you can have. If you know what your rights are, if you know what your obligations are, then you can deal with repression in a much better way. So I'm here tonight to say that the most effective tool to fight repression is one of knowledge. So here's another question about watching videos in Afghanistan. Can you be prosecuted? Would a non-Muslim be prosecuted? Well, I said to you before that I can say things that will never get me prosecuted. I can say that the Israeli government is full of war criminals. No one's going to prosecute me about that. But if other people say it in different contexts, particularly if they're talking about supporting some military attack against Israel, then you're in more trouble. So that's why I say be very cautious. There's a question about if we know that there are people within our group who might be infiltrators or informers, what we should should we do? Well, Baha will talk to you about that, but maybe those people should be exposed. We talked about immunity under an ASIO investigation. I said to you, under the ASIO Act, whatever you say in the interrogation cannot be used as evidence against you in some other prosecution. So when you are forcibly interrogated by ASIO, if they have a warrant, what can happen? You might say anything about what your intentions are, about what you support, about what organisation you think's doing a good job. You could talk about providing financial support to Hezbollah or to Hamas or whoever, and you cannot be prosecuted from what you say. You have an indemnity against prosecution. What you don't have an indemnity against is if you say something that's untruthful, and it's able to be proved to be untruthful, then you can be prosecuted. But ASIO's main role is gathering intelligence. What they do with the intelligence is another question. I'm suspicious of them. I don't trust them when they say that they don't give it to any other agency. We know that they do, and they have power to cooperate with other agencies. But what you say technically, if you were prosecuted at some other point, and for instance they tried to say, didn't you say when you were interrogated by ASIO at their headquarters that you support Al-Qaeda? That question could not be asked of you, and your answer could not be given, so it could not be used. There's a question about warrants. When police or ASIO come to your house, are you entitled to look at the warrant? Yes, you are. You can request a copy of the warrant. So a warrant, for instance, under ASIO, can be good for a period of time, 30 days or something of that nature. I can't remember the specific amount of time, but over a long period of time. So a warrant is not just for one day to attend premises. It usually enables the ASIO agents to attend over a period of time, but usually just once. You can ask for a copy of the warrant, you can ask to see the warrant. If they say they don't have the warrant, then don't let them in. They must have a warrant to enter your premises. The only other way either the Australian Federal Police or ASIO can get into your premises if you invite them in there. So what often happens is they knock on the door, mother or father answers the door. We just want to ask questions of your son or your daughter. Can we come into the premises? The natural reaction is to allow people to come in. That's the natural reaction. You don't have anything to hide, you don't have anything to fear. So it's a difficult thing to say to the police or to the agents, I refuse you permission to enter the premises unless you have a warrant, because it goes against how a person might respond naturally. Particularly you haven't got anything to hide, or you haven't done anything wrong. But remember, under ASIO warrants, they can collect information that doesn't have to relate necessarily to a terrorist attack. They can collect information about fundraising, for instance, fundraising by other people. You might have information stored on your computer. So once they've got the warrant, you must let them in. You can't resist them, because you'll be charged with a separate offence. There's a question asked about the problems that are often encountered at airports. What happens if a customs officer says, I want to check your luggage, I want to check your wallet, I want to check your phone, I want to ask you where you've been, who you've seen, how long you're away for, questions of that nature. Ordinarily they can only conduct a search if they've got a reasonable suspicion that you've been involved in some wrongdoing. Having been bought drugs into the country, having brought money into the country illegally, other contraband illegally. They have to have a reasonable suspicion that you've done something wrong. They can conduct random searches for drugs, and we know that through sniffer dogs and things of that nature. But are you obliged to say anything? They'll always say to you, you are not obliged to say or do anything, but anything you say or do may be used in evidence against you. So you can say to them, thank you for that. I don't wish to say anything until I've had legal advice. Now, what you want to avoid is confrontation. You want to avoid being detained at an airport unnecessarily. So you've always got to use your discretion about how much you say and what you might say to them. And again, it's important to try and avoid confrontation, because it's an easy thing to be charged with hindering or obstructing an agent or a police officer in the execution of their duty. Very easy thing to be charged with, and then you have the whole drama of a court case. So you've got to be careful about the way you use your discretion. If you think they're going to download information from your phone, then you ask them under what power or authority that they have to download information. They would not ordinarily be able to do it without your permission. So it's important to be firm about these things, to challenge them in a careful way, asking them what power they might have to go through information in your wallet or your phone. Under what power are they trying to do that? Once they're challenged, they usually back off, because often they will just say, while there's no resistance by you, I'll go through your wallet, tell me who these people are, who are their names on these cards, where did you get this money from? They'll continue to push the boundaries. As soon as you what authority you're doing this, they'll back away. They'll need you. They'll continue to push the boundaries whilst you are not resisting. There's a question here, do you believe it will be illegal to be a Muslim in Australia in the future? Well, not while I'm alive. I believe people have a right to choose their religion and practice their religion in any way they wish. And there are many of my friends and colleagues who support that as a fundamental human right. So I don't think that will ever occur. And if we got anywhere near close to it, it would be a very sad day. I'll be emigrating myself, I think. You are allowed to copy there's a question again about information and dissemination of information. Are you allowed to copy rulings on jihad? Is it possible to disseminate that information to other people, pass it on to them? Of course it is. So long as the information, as I said, doesn't show that you're going to be involved in some other activity against the state. There's a question about what should you say to an ASIO officer when they say to you, we'd like to question you or talk to you. The question is here, can I say no comment because they have no warrant in hand? How do I overcome such a situation? You should just simply say, I've had some advice and I don't wish to say anything, and just walk away. They can't detain you, they can't hold you, and as I said, you can decline to answer any questions. If they've got a warrant and they say, we've got a warrant for your detention and interrogation, ask for a copy of a warrant or a minimum to view the warrant, to see the warrant firsthand. If they do have a warrant, you should go with the agent or with a police officer peacefully. You should never resist arrest.